Chapter 3190. Even so, Shangguan Yungu still felt that he would not be too unlucky. He had worked hard for the Eastern Shang nation for 20 years, and it was time for him to enjoy his life. Since he was not involved in any fights now, no one should mess with him. Campus bell. Yungu, you are indeed a little unlucky. Shangguan Yungu's heart skipped a beat. Was he really that unlucky? Shangguan Yungu, is there any danger to your life? Campus bell. Yes, in the memory that I received, you will die in the future. Shangguan Yungu, how will I die? Campus bell. You will be poisoned to death. Someone really wanted to kill him and poison him? Who would be so senseless? Campus bell. Do Changye sent someone to do it. Looking at these words, Shangguan Yungu still didn't dare to believe it. Speaking of which, this marquee mansion could be considered to be full of loyalty. How could they poison him, and even poison him to death? Shangguan Yungu. Why would he poison me for no reason? Shangguan Yungu was not angry but puzzled. He couldn't understand why Do Changye would poison him. It didn't make sense at all. Campus bell. You might not believe it even if I tell you, but he wants to poison you because of a woman. You should have heard of this woman. She is Lu Junhua. Shangguan Yungu was even more confused. Tang Guo explained the situation in the plot to Shangguan Yungu in detail. Shangguan Yungu was in disbelief when he saw the message sent by Tang Guo. Before he met this group, although he would not die in the cave and brought the item back with his willpower, he was almost crippled. Just like now, he was conferred the title of Sage King Duan. However, there was a big difference between a crippled person and him now. He was a little angry when he saw that Do Changye rebelled with his nephew for a woman and succeeded in forcing the new emperor to abdicate. Besides, Do Changye was afraid that something bad would happen to him, so he sent someone to poison him and killed him. He was indeed the unlucky guy that Master and Uncle Masters described. Tang Guo described the cause and effect, as well as every important character in the story. When Shangguan Yungu found out about the fate of Tang Guo's identity, his heart was filled with sorrow. For a woman, so many things happened in Eastern Shang. If he didn't believe that all this was true, he would have thought that Tang Guo was making up a story. Shangguan Yungu. Then what does Martial Uncle plan to do next? Do you need my help? You don't have to worry about the Emperor. With Martial Uncle's warning, I won't let that woman affect him. The Emperor in the novel was slightly different from the current Emperor. Perhaps it was because he was very healthy this time and taught the Emperor more things. Now the Emperor's position was even more stable. Even if Do Changye really wanted to rebel against the Emperor, he might not be able to win. Campus bell. I don't need your help for the time being. I'm fine. I can handle everything at the moment. I'll come to you when I need you. Shangguan Yungu was still a little worried. Tang Guo was surrounded by maids, and there weren't many people who could be used. However, since Tang Guo rejected him, he couldn't make a forceful arrangement in case Martial Uncle didn't like it. The Peak. Chapter 3191. He had no choice but to send people to keep an eye on the movements of the House of Marquis. Once Tang Guo encountered any difficulties, he could guarantee that he would act immediately. Just now, his master had said in the group that every time his martial uncle went to a new world, his martial arts were still very weak at the beginning and needed a certain amount of protection. Since his master had said so, he could not lower his guard. What if he really put his martial uncle in a dangerous situation? After explaining things and warning Shangguan Yungu to be careful of the male and female lead auras, Tang Guo left the group. As for whether the Emperor, Shangguan Qingchuan, would meet the female lead again under Shangguan Yungu's watch, she could not predict. After all, there were some things that could not be predicted. If he really fell in love with Lu Junhua, it would be useless to stop him. Shangguan Yungu also said goodbye to the people in the group. Changing his lazy attitude, he called his secret guards and asked them to investigate the House of Marquis. Then he entered the palace, planning to see the Emperor and teach the little Emperor what it meant to provoke a woman who should not be provoked. It was easy to ruin things. What kind of woman could not be liked? A woman who had a child and did not know who she was, he must not like her. Maybe she had a husband and had temporarily forgotten about him. This was the most important thing. He must give the little Emperor a good warning. so that he would not lose the throne because of a woman. The emperor's woman had to be chosen from the children of the ministers. The outside world had an unknown origin, and no one knew what kind of problems would occur. Shangguan Qingchuan was completely unaware that Shangguan Yungu was going to give him a good lesson. On this side, Tanggua also left the group. She took a nap first, then took Liqi out of the house of Marquis to take a look at the shops. Her shops were in good locations, all of which were left by her mother for her. It was not that Minister Tang's wife did not want to have this idea, but her mother was far-sighted and had already arranged for people to be in the shops. These people were brought by her mother's family. If Minister Tang's wife wanted to snatch the shops, it would definitely be unpleasant. She spent the whole afternoon walking around the shops and casually gave some pointers to the shopkeeper. Then, she went to the jewelry shop and bought a few beautiful pieces of jewelry for herself. During the whole process, she did not hide her identity, so countless people noticed her. Not long after Tanggua returned to the house of Marquis, there were more rumors about her outside. Have you heard? The Shitsi's wife actually came out to look after the shop on the second day of her wedding. After looking at the shop, she even went to buy jewelry. I know. Someone even saw with their own eyes that the heir's wife was full of smiles. She didn't look like she was being neglected by the heir. Could it be that the previous rumors were false? Were those people randomly spreading them? In reality, the heir's wife and the heir's wife are very loving. Impossible. My friend's distant cousin's sister-in-law's younger sister's uncle is a servant of the Marquis's estate. All the servants of the Marquis's estate know that the heir had indeed left his wife alone in the bridal chamber on their wedding night, and went to the study by himself. Not only that, I heard that His Highness went out early this morning. He didn't even accompany His Highness to greet Madame Lai. But if that's the case, why would the heir apparent's wife come out to buy jewelry so happily? I think it's because the princess is too pitiful. Maybe she's just putting on an act. After all, what happened before was too pitiful. Vertex. Chapter 3192. As for the jewelry she bought happily, isn't she just trying to tell us that she's happy and dispel the rumors? You're right. Maybe that's the case. When Liqi heard the discussions of the people in the Marquis's mansion, she was furious. She hurriedly went to Tanggua's side and whispered to her about the rumors outside, not forgetting to scold Do Changya harshly. Liqi, you don't have to tell me what people say in the future. No matter what I do, people will gossip about it. Since that's the case, I'd better do what I want. The original owner of the body was too obedient and did not know how to resist. This was the biggest characteristic of women in this era, which was to resign themselves to adversity. She followed the 3 rules of obedience and did not think for herself at all. That was how she ended up. When she was asked to stay in the mansion, she did so. When she was asked to cultivate in the temple, she did so. If she resisted a little, even if she could not change the overall situation, she could at least fight for herself. Now that she was here, the first thing she had to do was to break everything and instill an impression in people that she was a shrew who could not be bullied by anyone. Whoever wanted to bully her had to open their eyes wide and see how much weight they were in. She would stay in the mansion for the time being and torture the unreasonable old lady. She did not blame her grandson, but blamed the weak old lady. When the male lead Do Changya and the female lead Lu Junhua met again, she would make Do Changya suffer. When Madame Dowager heard about Tanggua's carefree life, she could not stand it. Now he invited Tanggua and Qiuyu to go over together. Qiuyu walked out submissively and followed Tanggua fearfully. She did not understand why Madame Dowager would invite the wife of the crown prince. But she did not know why she would be invited. She was really afraid if she made a mistake later. She was not a person who liked to compete. Although it was a happy thing to be the concubine of the heir, she was really a little afraid of the wife of the heir. Tanggua looked at Qiuyu's pale and trembling face and smiled gently. Don't be nervous. You are now the crown prince's concubine. Don't be like before when you were a servant. Raise your head appropriately. Yes. Qiuyu listened and changed her mind slightly. When she saw the old madam, Tanggua asked with a smile. Did you sleep well today, old madam? Qiuyu, come here and let me see you. I haven't seen you for half a day and I've missed you so much. Madame Dowager didn't seem to hear Tanggua's words. She only looked at Qiuyu. Come here, Qiuyu. Let me take a look. I haven't seen you for half a day. You look thinner. Qiuyu shivered. She had a feeling that old madam was trying to gain hatred for her. She was just a lowly concubine. She really didn't dare to provoke the heir's wife. Madame Dowager, don't you remember how fierce the heir's wife was in the morning? Qiuyu was most likely frightened by someone. Or maybe she didn't eat lunch. That's why her face is so pale. Chen Hua, who was standing beside Madame Dowager, first looked at Tanggua, and then said sourly, maybe Qiuyu is not sensible, and is not liked by the heir's wife. That's why she didn't eat lunch. Qiuyu quickly said, it's not like that, old madam. This afternoon, this concubine's meal was very sumptuous. There was fish, meat, and a good combination of meat and vegetables. There was also a soup. The Peak. Chapter 3193. Madam of the Crown Prince really treated her well when it came to food. Initially, she was trembling with fear as she thought that Madam of the Crown Prince was going to poison her, an arrogant concubine. She had been waiting for the poison to take effect, but to her surprise, she was still fine. Hence, Madam of the Crown Prince really did not poison her, and was not as petty as she thought. Old Madame Dowager really misunderstood Madam of the Crown Prince too much. It could be said that the lunch she had today was the most delicious meal she had ever eaten since she arrived at the mansion. When Qiuyu mentioned these, she could not help but look at Tanggua with gratitude. Old Madame Dowager did not seem to understand what Qiuyu meant. She held Qiuyu's hand and said that she could not bear to part with her. She even gave Qiuyu a bracelet. When Qiuyu saw that the bracelet was actually worn by old Madame Dowager, she was frightened and hurriedly rejected it. You can't reject a gift from an elder. Take it. You've been serving me since you entered the mansion. Now that your status is different, you should have one or two good things with you. However, although your status is different, you're still living in the same mansion. Come and visit me often so that I won't miss you all the time. Yes, old Madame Dowager. I'll come and greet you every day. I'll never forget your kindness for the rest of my life. Qiuyu was actually afraid. In fact, although she was old Madame Dowager's maid, she was not as favored as the others who were good at talking, especially Chen Hua, who was the apple of old Madame Dowager's eye. She also knew a secret that Chen Hua had always wanted to stay by the Crown Prince's side to serve him. However, old Madame Dowager probably could not bear to part with Chen Hua. After all, Chen Hua was good at talking, meticulous, smart, capable, and funny. With Chen Hua around, old Madame Dowager was very happy every day. Tang family. Old Madame Dowager thought that Tanggua would be embarrassed by the fact that she had humiliated Tanggua in public. After all, she had favored a concubine more than a newlywed granddaughter-in-law in front of so many people. Wouldn't that embarrass Tanggua and make her a laughingstock? It was especially so this morning because Do Changya had gone out early in the morning and refused to serve her tea. Hence, she did not give Tanggua any face, let alone give her a gift. Now, he had bestowed Qiuyu with the jade bracelet that she had worn for many years. Anyone would be unable to sit still, right? In the Marquis's estate, she was the most powerful. Wouldn't it be difficult for someone she didn't like to survive here? However, when Madame Dowager called out to Tanggua, she subconsciously raised her head to look at Tanggua's possibly very unsightly face. Unexpectedly, Tanggua actually responded to her with a smile. Madame Dowager, do you have any orders? If it's a small matter, and I can do it, old madam, please let me know. If it's something big and I can't do it or it's very difficult, I might not be able to help old madam. System naughty. When the old madam heard this, she was so angry that her mouth almost went crooked. She had lived for almost a lifetime, but this was the first time she had seen such a shameless person. She was the elder of the Tang family. Since she had ordered her to do something, she should have done it obediently. Yet what did she say? If she couldn't do it, she wouldn't do it. This matter was outrageous. However, she could not get angry. Since Chen Hua was smiling, if she were to get angry and scold her directly, she would be at a disadvantage. Peak. Chapter 3194. As long as this old woman could live long enough, she wouldn't have to worry about not having enough time to turn Tangkor around. One day, she would make Tangkor obedient in front of her. If she told her to go east, Tangkor wouldn't dare to go west. System, this old woman loves to daydream. The old madam suddenly felt that something wasn't right. She looked up and realized that Tangwa was sitting down. She wasn't going to let Tangwa sit down. She had just left her to the side, because she wanted to teach her a lesson. She wanted her to understand that this wasn't Minister Tang's residence, but the Marquis household. The minister's household had its own rules, and the Marquis household had its own rules. Tangkor, the old madam shouted in a deep voice. She glared at Tangwa unhappily. Seeing that she was still smiling, she almost fainted from anger. She couldn't get angry. She had to endure it. She couldn't get angry. It was all Tangkor's daughter's fault for not having a good upbringing. It wasn't worth it for her to get angry. It wasn't worth it for her to ruin her health, just to make the other party happy. She definitely couldn't faint from anger in front of a grandchild. Otherwise, she would become the biggest joke in the capital before tomorrow. Old madam, you don't have to call me again and again. I'm young and can hear you. If you have anything to say, just say it. I can hear you. Tangwa was still smiling. Her attitude was very good. The old madam took a deep breath and scolded. Why did you sit down on your own? In other words, without her permission, how could Tangkor sit down so casually? She was simply not taking her seriously. Old madam, standing is tiring. System, what the hell? Dear host, is this even possible? Chiou, who was listening from the side, kept her head down. She didn't dare to look at Tangwa or the old madam. But when she heard Tangwa's words, her face was full of shock. She subconsciously lifted her head to look at Tangwa. She saw that she was sitting calmly in her seat. Even though the old madam was scolding her, she had no intention of standing up. She even had a smile on her face. It was obvious that she was not intimidated by the old madam's power. Sure enough, she was right. A person who could be so fierce in the morning was definitely not a simple person. Old madam had promoted her to be the heir's concubine, and wanted her to capture the heir's heart. However, she had to have the guts to do so. Given the current situation, it was better for her to stay in her own place and behave obediently in front of the heir apparent's wife. She should not let her imagination run wild. How could a mere concubine like her afford to offend someone who wasn't afraid of the old madam? Old Madam Chen was about to faint from anger. She never thought that Tang Guo would directly say that she was tired from standing. She really dared to say it. Your Highness, this is the minister's manner. Do you still know the rules when you talk back to the old madam? Chen Hua couldn't stand it anymore. Recently, she had not been doing well at all. She had originally thought that when the old madam wanted to promote someone to be the heir's concubine, she would be the first to be chosen. After all, among the young maidservants, she had been by old madam's side for the longest time. She was also the most active in serving old madam. When old madam was unhappy, she would think of all kinds of ways to make her happy. She didn't expect that when old madam promoted the last person, it would be Chiou, who always did things by the book and had a dull personality. She didn't understand. How could she not be compared to Chiou, who had the least experience? Especially when she saw that the old madam actually took off the bracelet that she had always been wearing and gave it to Chiou. She was so jealous that she went crazy. As for Tanggua, the heir apparent's wife, she hated her even more. The Peak. Chapter 3195. Old madam, please calm down. The Shiitsi's wife might not be familiar with the rules of the Marquis residence. I think that it's enough to let the Shiitsi's wife copy the family rules. Today is the second day of the wedding. It won't look good if things get out of hand. Old madam's anger subsided a little. Just as she was about to open her mouth to agree with Chen Hua, Tanggua opened her mouth again and interrupted her words. How dare you? When I'm talking to the old madam, when did a little girl like you get the chance to speak? Tanggua stopped smiling and stared at Chen Hua with a sharp gaze. Even though Chen Hua had always been pampered and was not afraid of anything, when she looked at Tanggua's gaze, she couldn't help but take a step back. This made her feel extremely vexed. Chen Hua, the old madam usually pampers you and indulges you. Do you not know the immensity of heaven and earth? Not to mention the matter of going against me, the Shitsi's wife. You actually dared to interfere with the old madam's decision. If I didn't know that the old madam was healthy and couldn't be controlled by you, I would have thought that you had already controlled the old madam and could use the old madam's mouth to do whatever you want. System fuck. Is this even possible? Chiyoyu was so scared that her face turned pale and her whole body trembled. Luckily, she didn't listen to Chunhua and teach the Shitsi's wife a lesson. Such a fierce Shitsi's wife. There was no need to say who would teach her a lesson. The old madam pampers the people around her because she likes it. Originally, I shouldn't say anything. It is the old madam's freedom to pamper whomever she wants. However, a servant girl doesn't know her place because of the old madam's pampering. I'm worried that she will use the old madam's name to ruin the old madam's, the Shitsis, and even the entire Marquis residence's reputation. Tangwa said slowly. Chunhua's originally rude and unreasonable attitude completely disappeared when she saw the old madam fall into silence. Old madam, it's all the servants' fault for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Just now, I was only thinking of the old madam, that's why. The old madam ignored Chunhua. This stupid servant girl made her lose face in front of Tang. Wasn't Tang mocking her? She couldn't even teach the people around her well, yet she still wanted to control her? This Tang was really sharp-tongued. She swore that one day, she would break every bone in Tang's body. I'm tired, all of you can leave. Madame Dowager, who was mentally and physically exhausted, did not want to talk to Tangguo at all. Tangguo smiled and said, Have a good rest, madam. I'll come to pay my respects to you tomorrow. Yes. Old madam nodded perfunctorily. She didn't come to greet her just to anger her to death, did she? She regretted it. She regretted listening to slander and believing that the eldest daughter of the minister's manor was a gentle and virtuous person. She didn't know who it was that made things difficult for her Marquis' estate, forcing this shrew to come to the Marquis' estate. She needed to calm down and think about how to deal with him next. Tangwa took Chiyoyu back to the courtyard. When they were back, Chiyoyu asked carefully, Your Highness, the old madam just rewarded me with a bracelet. Please take care of it. Since the old madam gave it to you, it's yours. Keep it for yourself. Tangwa smiled faintly. In the future, listen to the old madam's words. If she gives you something, just take it. Don't worry about anything. Chiyoyu quickly nodded and looked very obedient. Yes. However, she did not intend to listen to these words. If she had nothing to do, it was best not to go out. It was best to stay in the house and embroider. The Peak. Chapter 3196. She didn't want to be seen by the Shitsi's wife, who would suddenly think that she wasn't a good person and think of ways to torture her. That wouldn't be good. Now that she had the status of a concubine, she could only be a little concubine with peace of mind. She did not think about anything else. As an unfavored concubine, at least she could eat her fill. She didn't have to go out and run around, and she didn't have to casually arrange a servant to marry her. Speaking of which, it wasn't that bad. He didn't even have to do so much work every day. Chiyoyu, who understood her situation, looked much calmer. She obediently responded to Tangwa. She originally planned to stay by Tangwa's side to serve her, but later, Tangwa said that she didn't need to, so she obediently went back. Of course, Do Changya was aware of what had happened in the Marquis' mansion. It seems that she really has some skills. Previously, I was afraid that she wouldn't be able to deal with the old madam. I didn't expect that she would give me a surprise. All right. There's no need to keep an eye on the Marquis' estate. Let her compete with old madam. Do Changya was in high spirits. Now that there was finally someone who could make things difficult for old madam, he was overjoyed. In the evening, Do Changya returned to the mansion for dinner. The matriarch had sent people to keep an eye on the entrance of the manor. When she saw that he had returned, she immediately sent someone to invite him in. Do Changya did not refuse and followed Chunhua to old madam's courtyard. She heard that old madam and that Shitsifui's wife ate their own meals. Shitsifui's wife seemed to have a lot of money and wasn't restricted by old madam at all. That was even better. She had plenty of money and wouldn't be easily controlled by the old madam. Old madam, it's already so late. Haven't you had your meal yet? Do Changyi asked smilingly. He seemed to be in a good mood, which infuriated old madam. Each and every one of her family members really wanted her old life. You went out early in the morning. Did you forget that today is the second day of your wedding? You should have a new daughter-in-law come to pay her respects. Old madam said bluntly. You went out for the whole day. What did you do? Do you know what happened today? There are some urgent matters that I have to attend to. Do Changye sat down, completely unafraid of being questioned by Madam Dowager. Is there anything interesting in the residence today? By the way, how does old madam feel about the new wife of the crown prince? She was personally chosen by old madam for your grandson. She should be a good choice. When the old madam heard this, she was at a loss for words. She could tell that Do Changye must have known about what had happened in the residence and hence deliberately said those words to trick her. He said that because he was very dissatisfied with her forcing him to get married and making the decision to let him get married on her own. It was most likely Lu Junhua's death. Her grandson could still be blamed on her. He was really pissed off. This was her biological grandson. No matter how much trouble he caused, he was still her biological grandson. Seeing that their relationship was so bad, old madam did not mention Tangguo again. She couldn't let the conflict between her biological grandson continue. She had to straighten out that shrewish woman. You've been busy all day. Let's eat. Do Changye was satisfied with Madam Dowager's answer and began eating. This old madam probably didn't expect that she would marry a shrew back to Tiandu. This time, he had really done something that made him feel a little happy. After the meal, old madam recalled what happened to Qiuyu and told Do Changye about it. Qiuyu is one of my people. Treat her well, and don't mistreat her. Vertex. Chapter 3197. Old madam sighed and continued. If it weren't for her low status, she could have been a concubine. All right, old madam. Do Changye agreed. However, he headed straight to his study room after leaving old madam's courtyard. He had no intention of going to Tangguo's courtyard at all. It would be foolish of him to take old madam's words seriously. Did he go? Old madam asked Chunhua, who had just returned after hearing the news. Chunhua hid the joy on her face and answered softly. Old madam, His Highness has returned to his study room. His Highness didn't even like his wife, let alone someone like Qiuyu. Don't think that you can gain his favor just because you're his concubine. His Highness was the one who truly liked his wife who had passed away. No one else could replace that. The next morning, Do Changye went out again without informing anyone. Tangguo brought Qiuyu to greet him while old madam continued to put on an act and pretended to dote on Qiuyu. She even reminded Qiuyu, you have to be obedient and make His Highness like you, so that you can have children soon. When you have children, I'll promote you to a higher status. Yes, I understand. Qiuyu knew that she would do her best and listen to old madam. What else could she say? She felt that it was really tough for her to live every morning. You have to be more proactive in order for His Highness to like you. When His Highness is back, you have to take care of him, cook some tonics for him, and make him remember you. Old madam completely ignored Tangguo and gave Qiuyu advice because she wanted to see if Tangguo was really not angry. She even gave Qiuyu a lot of personal items. In the end, she realized that Tangguo did not mind at all and would come to greet her on time every day. However, it was impossible for her to take advantage of Tangguo in terms of actions and words. Old madam was at her wit's end. The main reason was that Qiuyu obediently said that she understood every day. Later on she did as she said. However, Do Changye had never entered Qiuyu's room. Fortunately, Do Changye had never visited Tangguo. Hence, old madam felt a little comforted. This Qiuyu is really useless. The old madam sat in the courtyard and sighed. She has been promoted for a month, but Changye didn't even give her a face. Really, all my efforts were wasted. I wanted to give her a wide path, but in the end, she's just a piece of mud that can't be supported. In the past month, she had been fighting with Tangguo every day. She was mentally and physically exhausted. She especially wanted to have a concubine who could overshadow Tangguo's limelight. It would be best if she could win the heir's favor. Even just a little, then Tang Guo would be a joke. Xiaoyu has a dull personality and is usually not good with words. How could she possibly be liked by the crown prince? Chunhua said softly. I've heard that Xiaoyu went to see Master Shizi according to old madam's instructions and delivered soup to him. Shizi said he didn't want to drink it and took it away. She really took it away. Old madam was wrong about her. You're right. I made a mistake in choosing Autumn Moon. The old madam was reflecting deeply. Now that the heir has been married for a month, it's time to take in a few more concubines. Chunhua was happy to hear that. I've already asked someone to take a look. Accompany me to choose later. Upon hearing that, Chunhua's heart turned cold. If she did not try her best to hide it, she would not have been able to keep a straight face. Peak. Chapter 3198. Obviously her age is suitable. She's so old that she's always in front of old madam, and would rather look for her outside. Why can't I see her? Shangguan Yungu, Marshal Uncle, I heard the recent movements in the House of Marquis. How are you? School beauty. My days are pretty good. Don't worry, no one can bully me. Shangguan Yungu. Indeed, no one can bully Marshal Uncle. The news says that Marshal Uncle has tormented old madam of the House of Marquis, and almost angered her to death. He Tangua is really not in any danger, and he can't help. He can only order people to keep an eye on that place. In addition, he knows that there are a few shops under Tangua's name. He ordered people to take care of them, to prevent people from causing trouble. During this period, there were indeed people who caused trouble for the shops. They were all solved by Shangguan Yungu's people. And the people who caused trouble for the shops were ordered by old madam of the House of Marquis. Shangguan Yungu is a bit sarcastic. This old madam is quite sinister. She wants to scheme against his martial uncle. Recently, in addition to paying attention to the House of Marquis, he also enters the palace every day to tell the little emperor some things, so that if he accidentally meets Lu Junhua, he won't be infatuated with her like in the plot, and lose the throne in the end. The little emperor Shangguan Qingchuan feels that his imperial uncle is super strange recently. He tells him every day that an emperor should keep a clear mind, even if he has a girl he likes in the future. He must not lose his mind because of feelings and lose his prestige as an emperor. He also says that no matter how good the girl is, if she has a son or a daughter, it's best not to provoke her. Especially for some girls of unknown origin, he should not have the mentality of seeking novelty, lest something bad happens. For this reason, he also collects countless books of unofficial history. They are all about the stories of the extraordinary girls of different dynasties. Shangguan Yungu thinks that by letting the little emperor see more of the extraordinary girls of different dynasties and gain more knowledge, he won't be infatuated with a mere Lu Junhua. The little emperor Shangguan Qingchuan thinks that it must be because the number of concubines in his harem has increased. This makes his imperial uncle worry that he won't do his job properly because of a girl. That's why he goes to the palace every day to warn him. One had to know that back then, he had gone to ask his imperial uncle to stay every day. He had hugged his imperial uncle's thigh and asked his imperial uncle to do things for him. But his imperial uncle had coldly and mercilessly flung him away. He even said that he had worked hard for Eastern Shang for more than 20 years and wanted to take a good rest. He also asked him to be more filial and not to enslave him. Now that imperial uncle had gone to the trouble of entering the palace, he must have heard some rumors. Did he think that he would go astray? For this reason, after Shangguan Yunga left the palace, the little emperor also investigated the entire palace to see who was gossiping. Someone must have said that he was obsessed with women and tried to sow discord on imperial uncle's side. Let him find them and teach them a lesson. However, after searching for a month, they still couldn't find this person. However, he did discover a lot of shady affairs in the palace. It was the unhappy little emperor who used thunderous methods to deal with a group of people. For a time, the harem was very peaceful. It was unknown whether it was because Shangguan Yungu had shown the little emperor those unofficial histories of extraordinary women, as well as some secret court histories, that the little emperor couldn't help but ponder as he looked at those smiling concubines. Was the other side of these concubines' smiles still like this? Vertex. Chapter 3199. The concubine in front of him had a beautiful smile. Her eyes were curved and her lips were curved. Her skin was fair, and she looked especially gentle. When he turned around, would he reveal his ferocious side, the kind that would devour people? However, the little emperor was a person who could adapt well, and did not have any trauma. However, after paying more attention to the situation in the harem, he did not seem to yearn for the so-called scholars and beauties as much as before. Shangguan Yungu saw that it was about time, and decided to bring the little emperor out of the palace for a walk. Shangguan Yungu. Martial uncle, I've already brought Qingchuan out of the palace. Why don't we meet at your jade shop? How about that? He thought that he would not have the chance to meet the people in the group. After all, they were in different worlds. Even Mo Yuntian, his master, might not be able to meet them in this lifetime. Tangua's arrival was a huge surprise for him. Campus bell. Okay, I will go out in a while. Shangguan Yungu. See you then. I am really excited to be able to meet Uncle Master. Mo Yuntian. Speaking of which, your luck is really good. I am a little envious. Margaret. I am so envious. I am more envious than being recognized by the creator of the universe. If I can meet the campus belle, I will never scold the creator of the universe again. After leaving the group, Tangua freshened up, and was about to go out when she saw Chunhua walking in with two ladies. Chunhua was originally arrogant. However, when she saw Tangua, she subconsciously restrained her arrogance and bowed to Tangua. Greetings, madam. What's the matter? Tangua had already guessed that Madame Dowager probably felt that Qiuyu was useless, and could not gain Do Changya's favor. Therefore, she wanted to find more concubines for Do Changya. Now that she, the wife of the heir, was here, she only needed to agree to take in concubines and raise them in this courtyard. If there were more concubines, Do Changya might really take a fancy to one of them one day. As long as Do Changya treated one of the concubines slightly better, it would be a slap to Tangua's face. Old Madame Gu decided that she would find more girls to marry into Do Changya's harem. Even if Do Changya didn't like her, she could still annoy Tangua. As the wife of an heir, it was probably unbearable for anyone to be surrounded by a group of eyesore concubines every day. This was what the old madam thought. After all, when she was young, her mother-in-law would always find excuses to send concubines to her, so that she could raise her status. At that time she was very resistant. Replying to Shitsi Foreign, Old Madam thinks that Shitsi Foreign's backyard is too cold and cheerless. It is said that ever since Shitsi Foreign entered the residence, she has not let Shitsi Foreign stay in the room even once. Therefore, the old madam asked me to bring them here, hoping that the heir presumptive's wife could make some arrangements. The Shitsi's wife is too weak to keep the Shitsi in the room. The old madam sent them to help you. Chunhua thought that after saying these words, Tangua would be so angry that she would stomp her feet. She didn't make up these words, but old madam said it herself. It was obvious how much the old madam detested this new wife of the crown prince. If not for the fact that she thought of Tangua's shrewdness, she would have mocked her. However, the old madam asked her to behave herself in front of Qiuyu, lest she offended her and made things difficult for the old madam. The Peak. Chapter 3200. At the thought of this, she felt uncomfortable again. Even old madam had to avoid this shrewish woman. If any of the concubines in the backyard were to get pregnant, this crown prince would be a huge joke. Let's see if he could still be so miraculous by then. So it's old madam who arranged for people to help me take care of the crown prince, Tangua said smilingly. All right, you can leave them here. I'll settle them down properly. Go back and tell old madam that I'll treat these concubines fairly. However, you'll have to tell old madam about the expenses. Forget it. I'll ask the butler when I'm back. Chunhua was in a daze as she was pushed out of the courtyard with a piece of silver that Tangua had given her. Only then did she realize that Tangua did not seem to be unhappy. As old madam had been dealing with Tangua seriously recently, she naturally did not bother about Do Changya's entanglement. When Do Changya found out that Tangua was capable of being calculative with old madam, He did not send anyone to keep an eye on the duke's mansion. Hence, he did not know that he had accidentally gained 2 more concubines. "What are your names?" Tangwa asked with a smile. Her smile scared the 2 concubines in front of her. They thought that their appearance had angered the crown prince's wife, and their legs could not help but tremble. "I'm Zhang Yuanxiang." "I'm Li Donger." "Greetings, crown prince's wife." The 2 concubines bowed to Tangwa politely. They were afraid. They were bought by old madam, and did not have any status at all. They thought that they would enter the duke's mansion as maids, but they did not expect that they would be concubines of the crown prince. Although they had heard about the crown prince's infatuation, they had been living in a poor family since young. They did not dare to imagine the so-called loyal and fierce love. Moreover, with their status, they were sold to the duke's mansion by their parents. How would they dare to ask for such extravagant things? It was good enough that they were able to survive in this mansion carefully. If the crown prince doted on them, it would be their fortune. If the crown prince did not like them, they only hoped that they would have a meal and would not be sold again. Their parents had originally planned to sell them to brothels. Later on, they heard that the old madam of the marquis's estate was looking for candidates, so they were sent over. Because of her good looks, she was chosen. Lychee reward. After spending more than a month together, Lychee had already become numb. When Tangwa said that she would reward them, she immediately gave them 2 tails each, the same as what Chiuyu had done previously. Chiuyu watched from the side, and found that Tangwa did not make things difficult for the 2 new concubines. She decided that after Tangwa left, she would have a good talk with the 2 new concubines about what to do in the marquis's household. In short, no matter what, he could not afford to offend the princess. To be honest, other than being nagged by old madam every morning for the past month, her life had been very comfortable. The Shitsi's wife would not scold her, nor would she find an excuse to torment her. She would also not ask her to serve her personally. She was provided with 3 meals a day. In the past month, she had gained some weight, and her skin had become much fairer. When the Shitsi's wife left, she would occasionally bring back some small things from the store to reward her. If she was not the crown prince's concubine, based on the way they interacted now, she would feel that she was not the crown prince's concubine, but the princess's concubine. When this thought popped up, Chiuyu was shocked. She hurriedly threw away the messy thoughts in her mind. The Peak. Chapter 3201. Just like Chiuyu, Zhang Yuanxiang and Li Dong held the heavy silver in their hands in disbelief. It wasn't that the heir apparent's wife wasn't favored, and was given the cold shoulder by the heir apparent on their wedding night, and was now the joke of the capital. Some people even said that the heir apparent's wife was smiling in front of others to maintain her last bit of face, so that those rumors would turn into false rumors. But now that they saw the real heir apparent's wife, they realized that it wasn't like that. If they could casually reward people with 2 taels of silver, they probably wouldn't be so sad. The 2 hurriedly thanked her, and held the silver in their hands happily. When they were at their maternal home, they had never received so much silver in one go. Their parents couldn't wait to take care of their brothers, and were afraid that they would spend a little more money. Arrange a place for them to stay. Tangwa's gaze landed on Chiuyu. Chiuyu, you will teach them the rules of the marquis's residence. I have some matters to attend to and have to leave immediately. Go ahead, heir apparent's wife. Chiuyu will definitely help you with these matters. System, something doesn't feel right. This Chiuyu is the heir apparent's concubine, not his great host's concubine. Why does Chiuyu look like a virtuous wife? What the hell, big cutie? Where the hell did that guy go? Hurry up and get your wife. If he doesn't come out now, your wife won't just be flirting with male admirers outside. He sees more female admirers than male admirers. After interacting with his great host for a long time, these women would probably have their hearts set on her. After all, women in this era had it tough. If someone treated them like this, as long as they weren't ungrateful, they would definitely have their hearts set on her. Heavens, he suddenly felt that his great host was like a scumbag. Tangwa went to her jade shop as promised. There were all kinds of jade wares for sale. She had been waiting in the inner room, listening to the shopkeeper calculate this month's profit and loss. Last month, She had drawn some exquisite designs for the shopkeeper. After the exquisite jade wares were created, they were quickly ordered. Now, she had already agreed with the shopkeeper that she would personally draw some designs every month for them to follow. However, there could be no more than 5 pieces of each design. She also suggested that only one piece be made of the best jade, so that it would be more attractive to people of high status. People of noble status did not lack that little bit of money. As long as they liked it, the shop's income would be endless. In a short month, the shopkeeper had already tasted the benefits and knew how to promote the jade wares in the shop. It's mainly because Tang Gua increased his salary, the basic salary plus commission. All the workers in the shop get this kind of salary. This meant that the more they sold, the more they would earn. The more they would earn, the more they were doing their own work. There weren't many owners with such a kinds. Everyone in the shop worked very hard, fearing that they would be driven away by Tang Gua if they slacked off. Your son's is jade wares is jade wares. That's that. S it of course is. S.A. looks face S right now. Teat, SSS. S is the of all. TSS of AA of A's AA. SS point. Chapter 3202. However, the style is indeed unique, but the jade is still not good enough. It still hasn't reached this young master's standards. Tang Gua peeked through the gap in the curtain and saw a man whose actions were filled with the aura of a hedonistic son of rich parents. He fastened a folding fan to his waist, and the robe he was wearing was also very luxurious, but it looked a little gaudy. That arrogant, lazy, and somewhat contemptuous look still made people want to beat him up. Which little mouse is secretly looking at this young master? The hedonistic young master who was looking at the jade suddenly walked towards Tang Gua. The shopkeeper wanted to stop him, but he was a step too late. The hedonistic young master had already lifted the curtain and said loudly, "Little mouse who is secretly looking at this young master, don't think about running away. If you are caught by this young master, you are dead meat." His tone was a little excited, as if he had found something fun. Just as he was about to reach out to catch it, he suddenly stopped. This was because he had clearly seen the little mouse who was secretly looking at him. It was a beautiful girl. From her hairstyle, she should be called a woman. Tang Gua stared at the hedonistic young master indifferently. She didn't even blink, and didn't have any intention of dodging. The hedonistic young master's hand almost reached out to her face. When he saw Tang Gua's gaze, he subconsciously retracted his hand. He quickly let go of the curtain and returned to the counter, as if nothing had happened. "The little mouse has already run away," he muttered in a small voice. "It ran really fast." This young master was a step slower. "Shopkeeper, take out all your top-quality jade wares, and let this young master take a look." "System, are you serious?" The little mouse had already run away. It ran really fast. Did it think that it was 2 little tigers? 2 little tigers, how could they run so fast? This person was here to be funny, right? No, wait, the system silently pondered. This familiar scene, why was it a little suspicious? "Young miss, that person is the General King's hedonistic son, Mei Shangji, who is ignorant and incompetent," Lichi said softly. She was not like the young miss who stayed in her room every day and did not go out. Every once in a while, he would go out of the manor to help the young miss buy some things. Naturally, she also knew this number 1 hedonistic young master in the capital, Mei Shangji. After all, this person was too famous. His reputation was bad, and he was not young anymore. He only had a good-looking appearance, but in reality, the young ladies of decent families all looked down on him. Well, don't worry about it. Lichi was already used to her young Miss's calm appearance. In any case, young Miss was able to do well in the Marquis's estate, and no one could bully her. Instead, it was much more comfortable than in the minister's estate. As her personal maid, she naturally knew whether her mistress was truly happy or not. Naturally, since the young miss was living a good life, she would not speak nonsense. Whatever the young miss said, she would just do it. Instead of hoping that the heir would fall in love with Miss, it was better to hope that the shops under Miss's name would bring in more income. "Shangji, it really is you. Why are you here?" An extremely young voice came from outside, attracting Tang Guo's attention. How could the General King of Ghosts, who is ignorant and incompetent, have a son like you? Another slightly more mature voice sounded, causing Tang Guo to pay more attention. Mei Shangji turned his head and saw two imposing people walk in. The lazy smile on their faces did not change. You, who are so busy every day, how come you have the time to come out? Peek. Chapter 3203. I just came out for a walk. Shengguan Qingchuan secretly glanced at Shengguan Yungu and walked a few steps to Mei Shangji, saying in a low voice, "Recently, Imperial Uncle has been strange. He said he wanted to bring me out to see the world. I'm a bit worried about him. Don't know if it's because he's old that his personality has become strange. Imperial Uncle has no children, so I have to comply with such a small request." Shengguan Qingchuan was whispering, but he completely didn't know that Shengguan Yungu was now a cultivator. Whatever whispering, don't think about escaping his ears. Hearing him say that he was old and had a strange temper. He even said that he had no children and pitied him, so he cooperated with him. He was about to die from anger. This brat was still so naughty even after becoming an emperor. He looked like he wanted to be beaten again. Right, what are you doing here? Not waiting for Mei Shangji to answer, Shengguan Qingchuan already saw the jade in the other's hand. Are you here to choose a jade? And to choose a jade cup for my father. However, the style of the jade here is unique. It's just that the color isn't too good. Mei Shangji's face was full of pity and disdain, especially asking for a beating. The shopkeeper was used to it. In this capital, one could meet people of noble status whenever they raised their heads. At this time, no matter what the customer said, he just nodded and smiled as he listened. He absolutely couldn't refute. Otherwise, if he made the noble unhappy, not being able to open the shop was a small matter. Losing his little life was a big matter. Don't look at how his boss was the Shitsi foreign. In this capital, who knows how many people were older than the Shitsi foreign? When doing business, greet with a smiling face and a gentle attitude. The less trouble, the better. Being amiable would never be wrong. Even if someone wanted to cause trouble, they had to think twice. I think it's not bad. The color isn't the best, but the style is unique. The King General should like this. Mei Shangji completely didn't notice that Shengguan Yungu's face was already as black as the bottom of a pot. He even curled his lips and said, "It's barely passable. I can't find anything else good. If I can't find anything else, I'll just use the one here." That full of disdain really wanted Shengguan Yungu to help the King General discipline that ignorant and incompetent brat first. The General King was not of the royal bloodline, but someone who had personally followed the previous emperor into battle and made great contributions. It could be said that without the existence of the Lord General, the internal and external troubles of Eastern Shang might not have been resolved. After all, he was still young at that time. Technically speaking, the Lord General was of the same generation as his imperial grandfather. He had been assisting the late emperor in his growth, and had followed the late emperor on his expeditions. Because he had been fighting all year round, he didn't have the time to get married and have children. He also didn't want to delay other people's good girls when he wasn't settled down, so he rejected all of them. Speaking of this, Shengguan Yungu was reminded of Dou Changyi. He agreed to the marriage just to appease the old madam of the family and ruin the girl's life. Bah! That brat did not deserve to be compared to the General King at all. Currently, the General King was only around 60 years old. His body was still quite healthy, but because he had been injured too many times, his legs were crippled, and he could not even lift one of his arms. In short, he was sick all over. Fortunately, it did not affect his lifespan. Or else, with the General King's personality, he would probably continue to guard the borders. His imperial brother's health was not good. He was not even 40 years old when he died. Even among the emperors of the past dynasties, his lifespan was considered very short. Vertex. Chapter 3204. Now that Eastern Shang was peaceful, and the people were at peace, the General King, who had made great contributions to protect the peace of Eastern Shang, was naturally respected by countless people. The imperial family was not afraid of the General King, because he was not greedy for power at all. His only thought was to protect Eastern Shang. He was an unyielding hero who only wanted to protect the country. If not for the General King's protection, even if Shangguan Yungu was smart, he would not be able to secure the position of the little emperor with his own ability. The only regrettable thing was the General King's ignorant and incompetent hedonistic son, Mei Shangji. Mei Shangji was born under the wooden light that everyone was looking forward to. They thought it was the birth of another General King. Later on, everyone realized that it was the birth of a devil. The people in the capital thought that the General King was too perfect, and the heavens were jealous. So they decided to give him a useless son. They all felt that it was a pity. Ever since Mei Shangji was born, the General King's residence had never been peaceful. When he grew up, he became the king of the children in the capital. When he grew older, he became the boss of the hedonistic sons in the capital. No matter which family's hedonistic sons, they would all call him boss when they saw him. In the capital, as long as Mei Shangji gave the order, those hedonistic sons would definitely listen to him and fight together. This was a big devil, leading a group of little devils, giving the General King a headache. As for how Shangguan Qingchuan got to know Mei Shangji, it had to be said that when Shangguan Qingchuan left the palace to play when he was young, he was cheated of his money by a swindler in the capital. In short, it was Mei Shangji who helped Shangguan Qingchuan, and said that Shangguan Qingchuan was his little brother. Regardless of whether their seniority was messy or not, even if the two had different personalities, they still became good friends. They had once considered letting Mei Shangji enter the palace to study with Shangguan Qingchuan. Later on, they only let him stay in the palace for 3 days, and immediately chased him out. Staying for 3 days already made everyone in the palace uncomfortable. If he stayed for a month, the palace would probably be torn down by him. It just so happened that this kid never made a big mistake. He would only make some laughable and helpless small mistakes, making it impossible for others to punish him ruthlessly even if they wanted to. Even if this brat was often beaten by the General King, he still didn't learn his lesson. By now, the General King had pretty much given up. If his son was crippled, then so be it. With his current state, he was really afraid that if he sent him to the military camp, he would make a mistake and cause everyone's death. In that case, it was better to cripple him. Crippling him would be safer for the entire Eastern Shang nation. Hearing Mei Shangji and Shangguan Qingchuan's whispering, Shangguan Yungu remembered the important matter of coming here. Just as he was about to use his consciousness to scan the room, he saw the curtain in the inner room being pulled open. Then, he saw a woman with an extraordinary aura walk out. She had her hair tied up in a bun. Needless to say, there weren't many women with such an aura. She should be his school belle little martial aunt. "Shopkeeper, I want to order a batch of very special jade articles from you. Is your boss here?" Due to his identity, Shangguan Yungu could not directly go in and talk to Tanggua. The shopkeeper replied, "You came at the right time. Our boss is right here." The shopkeeper glanced at Tanggua. Tanggua nodded. "What kind of jade articles do you want? Let's go inside and talk." Peek. Chapter 3205. Shangguan Yungu was already sure that this was his school beauty Shirshu. He patted Shangguan Qingchuan and warned, "Stay here and don't leave, especially not with Mei Shangji. Wait until I finish my business." "Yes, uncle." Shangguan Qingchuan nodded obediently. Even though he felt that he might not be able to do it, he would agree first. Mei Shangji would most likely drag him away to play later. He only had Shangji as a close friend. Now that they finally met, they would definitely go out together. Therefore, he could only say sorry to Imperial Uncle in his heart. However, why hadn't he heard about Imperial Uncle wanting to order jade wares? He hadn't realized that Imperial Uncle liked these things before. That's right. Could it be that he wanted to order them for the General King? If that was the case, then it made sense. The General King didn't like fame and wealth. His only hobby was jade wares. Everything in the house that could be exchanged for jade had already been exchanged for jade. This kind of small hobby was quite elegant. Shangguan Qingchuan thought that once Shangguan Yungu went in, Mei Shangji would definitely drag him away to drink. However, after waiting for a while, Mei Shangji still didn't move. He turned around and saw Mei Shangji playing with the jade cup in his hand, but his eyes were constantly drifting towards the inner room. However, there was a curtain there, and he couldn't see clearly what was inside. Shangji, what are you looking at? Mei Shangji returned to his senses and said with a smile, nothing much. I almost caught a little mouse before, but the little mouse ran too fast and disappeared. System, calling you a mouse again and again. See if the host doesn't beat you into a dead mouse later. The owner of this shop is actually a woman, Mei Shangji said carelessly. It still surprised me. That woman didn't seem too old, probably around 10 years old. She was younger than him, but was actually able to run a jade shop so well. She was quite impressive. It was just that the quality of the jade wares here wasn't too good, and didn't match the unique styles. What's the identity of your owner? These things were no secret in the capital. As long as a noble wanted to inquire, they would quickly find out. Therefore, the shopkeeper told Mei Shangji the truth about Tang Guo's identity. It's actually the wife of the marquis? Mei Shangji muttered softly. The one who was abandoned by the heir in the bridal chamber on their wedding night, and is now the laughing stock of the entire capital. The shopkeeper looked embarrassed and didn't reply. This hedonistic son of the General Wang family was indeed asking for a beating. If it weren't for his status, he would have beaten him up. Shopkeeper, if you're not happy, just say it. I'm just asking. Actually, I didn't say anything bad about Princess Shitzi. That's what the people outside said. I was just stating a fact. However, looking at your wife, she seems to be living a free and unfettered life. She doesn't seem to be the kind of person who has fallen out of favor. The shopkeeper's expression softened a little as he finally heard some words from the shopkeeper. The boss is a powerful woman. The style of the wine cup in young Master Mei's hand was personally drawn by the boss. Hearing this, Mei Shangji and Shengguan Qingchuan were both taken aback. This princess was truly amazing to be able to draw such an exquisite wine cup. Sure enough, there were many extraordinary women in this world. Most of the extraordinary women in the unofficial historical stories were true. Vertex. Chapter 3206. Shangji, aren't you going for a drink today? To be honest, he wasn't used to Mei Shangji not dragging him out to play and angering his imperial uncle. It was indeed a little strange for a troublemaker to suddenly become well-behaved. I'm not going. My father's birthday is coming soon. It's better not to anger him. Mei Shangji subconsciously found an excuse. Besides, I'm not sure if it's because I'm not feeling well recently. I can't stand the smell of alcohol. I see. Then when I return to the palace, I'll send 2 imperial physicians to take a look at you. If you're not feeling well, you should have told me earlier. If the physicians outside aren't good, then send someone to the palace to find me. Didn't I give you a token to enter and leave the palace? Mei Shangji rubbed his nose. Actually, it could be because I drank too much recently. That's why I'm a little disgusted with good wine. Recently, I've observed my body, and there's nothing wrong with it. If it's really not working, send someone to the palace to find me. Got it. As expected of my good brother. Mei Shangji's gaze was still on the inner room. His eyes were filled with curiosity. The shopkeeper was helpless. This devil incarnate. Why didn't he hurry up and buy the things and leave? I wonder what Sage King Duan talked about inside. Is the jade item he ordered for my father? I don't know. Martial uncle, is that you? Shengguan Yunga shouted excitedly. To be honest, he was especially nervous now. He couldn't be mistaken. He was certain of this. Tang Guo had already asked Liqi to stand guard outside. She nodded lightly. It's me. Martial uncle, I finally meet you. Shengguan Yunga was so excited that he didn't know what to say. To be honest, he still felt that this was a dream. An impossible dream. However, Tang Guo was already in front of him. This evidence proved that this was reality. Martial uncle, I was too excited. Seeing Tang Guo's calm expression, Shengguan Yunga couldn't help but admire her. Martial uncle was indeed an expert. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her, her expression wouldn't change at all. It's okay. This is your first time doing this. Now that you've entered the path of immortality, your lifespan is very long. In the future, you'll see all kinds of scenes in the group. Slowly, you'll be able to calm down. Shangguan Yungu nodded. These words were not wrong. Martial uncle, now that you've been here for a month, I'm not worried about your situation at the Marquis estate. What do you plan to do next? Let's wait for Lu Junhua to appear. I will never let Do Changya off. Tang Gua said meaningfully. Yungu, don't you want to see if what happens next will be like what I told you? Shangguan Yungu swallowed his saliva several times. To be honest, he really wanted to. Some things were still too bizarre for him. If he didn't see it for himself, he wouldn't believe it. He had told the people in the group that Tang Gua could travel through many worlds and meet the people in the group. At first, he didn't really believe it, even though he knew that those people weren't lying to him, and that something like that really happened. He still had doubts in his heart. He suspected that everything that happened was a dream, an illusion. Of course. That's fine. I know you've been teaching the little emperor recently. That's fine. But don't get involved in other things for the time being. Wait for Lu Junhua to appear. Vertex. Chapter 3207. Actually, Lu Junhua didn't have much to say in the plot. However, based on her choices, it was clear that the male and female leads were attracted to each other. Do Changya plotted to dethrone the young emperor, but Lu Junhua did not say anything. It was enough to prove that she still cared about Do Changya, even though she had lost her memory. She knew about Do Changya's rebellion. However, she kept it a secret because she was afraid that the young emperor would bring disaster to Do Changya's family. Regardless of whether one was exempted from death, the royal family had plenty of ways to kill him once he was accused of rebellion. In order to prevent Do Changya from being killed, Lu Junhua kept it a secret from the young emperor, who had always been good to her. In the end, the young emperor was forced to abdicate, and his ending was not good. I'll listen to you, Uncle Master. Don't worry, after a month of my teaching, Qingchuan won't be like in the plot. He won't be devoted to a woman and ignore everything else. Shangguan Yungu said confidently. I brought Qingchuan out today because I want him to see more of the world and see how complicated it is. If he stays in the palace all the time, he will be isolated from the world. He may be able to protect the country, but he won't be able to make it better. After interacting with the people in the group, Shangguan Yungu had a different outlook. His favorite thing to do is to ask the people in the group about the books in their world. Even the books in Tang Gua's world, he has read all the introductions of that era. Uncle Master, I heard that old madam has been helping Do Changya get concubines. Do you need my help? If there are too many women in your courtyard, will they bother you? No need, they are all poor people. Anyway, the Marquis's mansion is not short of money. Just take it as doing charity for them. I don't like places that are too quiet. I like places that are lively. The more people there are, the more lively it will be. Shangguan Yungu did not understand what his Uncle Master's hobby was. Since he did not care, he did not say anything more. Oh yes, Uncle Master, I'd better order a piece of jade from you. It will be the general's birthday soon. I've already found an excuse just now. If I don't take it out, it will arouse suspicion. Shangguan Yungu did not want the young emperor to know about these things for the time being. It was not a good thing to know too much. That brat can just be an emperor in peace. System. Are you sure it's not because you're afraid of that brat? Now that you know the truth, you want to come here to cultivate. What if there's no one left to be the emperor? He was really cunning. Tang Gua smiled. I see. Coincidentally, I have 2 sets of wine vessels in my collection. You can take one of them as a birthday gift for the General King. Tang Gua found the 2 sets of wine glasses in the system space. This other set is for you. Take it as a meeting gift. Shangguan Yungu wanted to refuse, but Tang Gua stopped him. These 2 sets of wine vessels are not ordinary. If you use these wine vessels to steam wine and drink wine, not only will it be beneficial to your body, it will also be beneficial to your cultivation. Shangguan Yungu couldn't refuse and hurriedly thanked her. He felt that he couldn't help Tang Gua with anything, and felt a little guilty. When he entered the group, it was the people in the group who helped him. The number of things he had helped the people in the group could be counted on one hand. Thank you, Martial Uncle. Yungu will not decline. If you have any instructions, feel free to send someone over. Vertex. Chapter 3208. My people will keep an eye on the Marquis residence. If Martial Uncle really encounters anything, just shout my master's name outside. Shangguan Yungu was somewhat uncomfortable. This is a secret signal. He felt that using his master's name as a secret signal was not only easy to remember, but also impossible to make a mistake. Other than the people in the group, no one knew this person. Tangwa smiled and nodded. Okay. I'll give you a universe ring. Since you've already reached this step, a universe ring is indispensable. A universe ring is also called a space ring. There's a big space inside, and you can put important things inside. In the future, when you're able to fly and leave this place, you can put anything you want inside. Shangguan Yungu didn't know what to say. To be honest, this universe ring was more attractive than a wine vessel. It sounded very useful. Big brother Emo must have forgotten about this matter. Don't feel uncomfortable. This thing is nothing to us. I'm your martial uncle. Naturally, I have to take care of you. Even if she didn't give it to him now, Emo Yuntian would remember one day. Even if Emo Yuntian couldn't remember, Qi Xiao would. Most likely, Qi Xiao would personally refine one for him. Because of the inconvenience of their identities, the two didn't talk for long. They agreed that if there was anything in the future, they would discuss it here. Afterwards, Shangguan Yungu left with the wine vessel and the universe ring that had already been packed. Noble person, take care. If the things are good, you're welcome to come again. Tang's words almost scared Shangguan Yungu. Fortunately, he was a cultivator and could still hold the things in his hands steadily. When he came out, he saw that Shangguan Qingchuan was still there. Then he saw that Mei Shangji was also there. He felt very strange. Tangwa looked at Mei Shangji meaningfully. Mei Shangji glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. In fact, he didn't know why, but his heartbeat actually sped up, making him a little flustered. He quickly shifted his gaze away. Host, those two sets of wine vessels aren't troublesome things. But if you drink them in wine, it can indeed get rid of some small problems in your body. If you drink them for a long time, some major problems can be removed. It can also prolong your life. I heard that this General King's body was injured because of the war. Now one of his legs is lame, and he can't lift one of his arms. Whenever it rains, it hurts terribly. If he drinks the wine made from these two sets of wine vessels, it won't take long for him to improve. Host, you really have nothing to say about this junior Shangguan Yungu. You gave him such a precious thing as a gift. Tangwa smiled. You sound so weird. Where did you learn it from? How could that be? What I said was the truth. Could it be that the host gifted the wine vessel not to help Shangguan Yungu, this junior, but for some other purpose? The system's feigned ignorance sounded a little despicable. Tangwa glanced at Mei Shangji, who had already averted his gaze, and said to the system, Do you think Mei Shangji is a real dandy, or a fake dandy? The system stopped pretending to be confused. Is it important to the host? In any case, even if he became an idiot, he would still know how to treat his host well. Don't underestimate how ruthless he is to himself. That's right. In any case, I have money. As long as he's obedient, it doesn't matter whether he's a real dandy or a fake. When I'm free, I'll trick him to come back and raise him. System, you're insane. You've just met, and you're already having ideas about the man of a good family. Peak. Chapter 3209. Shangji, you haven't chosen one yet? I think this wine cup is not bad. Let's buy it. If we see something better, we'll give it to the General King. Shangguan Qingchuan pulled Mei Shangji and suggested. Mei Shangji was indeed going to buy the wine cup, but he was a bit distracted just now. Strange. Why was he embarrassed to look at the wife of the crown prince? Although she didn't have a good reputation, his reputation was worse. He was the devil incarnate that every child in the capital feared. He was the head of the hedonistic sons, the boss. Not many people dared to provoke him. It was really too embarrassing just now. He didn't even dare to look at a girl's eyes. He was really unworthy of his reputation as the #1 hedonistic son in the capital. Young Master Mei, you don't like the jade in the shop. Actually, I have other jade in my hands, but it's not a wine cup. If you really want to buy it, I can take it out and let you have a look. Tanggua took the initiative to speak. This was something that Mei Shangji didn't expect. He didn't have his previous calmness. The laziness on his body also dissipated a bit. He was very nervous. If it wasn't for the fact that running away from a girl was a very embarrassing thing, he might have already run away. He was especially strange today. Could it be that there was something wrong with his body? He decided to discuss with Shangguan Qingchuan later to arrange for an imperial doctor to check his body and see if there was any strange problem. Especially his heart, it was really uncomfortable. Could it be that there was something wrong with his heart? Noticing that everyone around him was looking at him, Mei Shangji probably remembered his image as a hedonistic son. The corner of his mouth curled up, and a lazy smile hung on his face. The expression on his face was very annoying. He opened his fan and walked in front of Tanggua. His appearance was really arrogant. "Oh, do you have any better jade here other than this wine cup?" Actually, Mei Shangji was panicking. But who was he? He was Mei Shangji, the #1 hedonistic son in the capital. How could he panic in front of a weak girl? If this spread out, what would his underlings think of him? One had to know that he was afraid to look at a girl and talk to her. The children in the capital probably wouldn't be afraid of him anymore. Of course, I'm just afraid that young master Mei won't be able to afford it after seeing it. How could I not be able to afford it? Mei Shangji frowned. This little girl actually looked down on him, Mei Shangji, with the amount of money he had. Not to mention buying the jade wares that she had hidden away. It would not be a problem for him to buy a real shop. This little girl was not a friendly person, and actually looked down on him. Mei Shangji was no longer flustered, because someone was looking down on him. "Then young master Mei, please come inside. I will take you to see the jade artifacts." Tanggua nodded toward Shangguan Yungu, and then went inside. Mei Shangji raised his voice and said, "I'll go in and take a look first. I'll come out after I buy it." Then, he quickly followed behind Tanggua, and went in. There was a jade pillow in front of him. It was not small, and its quality was good. When Mei Shangji saw this jade pillow, he was already dumbfounded. "Young master Mei, touch this jade pillow." Mei Shangji reached out his hand and carefully touched it. The touch gave him a very comfortable feeling. It was smooth, soft, and slightly cold. It was clearly a jade pillow. It should be hard, but he felt that it would be very comfortable to rest on. System. Don't you know who took it out? Vertex. Chapter 32:10. Young Master Mei, how do you feel? Mei Shangji subconsciously said, "It's a good item." "Young Master Mei, do you want to buy it?" Tanggua asked. This was naturally a good item. Not only was it precious, but it could also soothe one's nerves and improve one's sleep. Basically, people who had insomnia would fall asleep in a short while with this pillow. Moreover, this jade pillow was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. In the winter, it would faintly heat up and promote blood circulation in the neck. In the summer, the pillow could bring a cool feeling. "I'll buy it." Mei Shangji heard the effects of the jade pillow and did not doubt it at all. He believed that what Tanggua said must be true. He gathered his courage and asked, "How much is this pillow?" Tanggua smiled. "Does young master Mei think this pillow is precious?" "Of course it's precious." "Then young master Mei, do you have enough money to buy this pillow?" Mei Shangji was stumped by this question. His fingers moved as he calculated all of his assets, even including the things he had bought in the past. In the end, he said, "I can take out 300,000 taels. Even if someone offered 1,000,000 taels for this pillow, I wouldn't buy it. It seems that young Master Mei is not as rich as I thought." That's right, after all. Young Master Mei is the son of the General King. It's expected that you can't take out that much money. Mei Shangji's face was a bit hot, but after hearing the effects of the pillow, he wanted to buy it today. "Mistress, I'll give you one." Mei Shangji stood up straight, and his appearance became very serious. "Name a price for this pillow. I'll give you 300,000 taels first, and I'll slowly return the rest to you. Although I, Mei Shangji, am a hedonistic young master, I have never owed anyone money or taken advantage of anyone. Please believe me." Tanggua smiled. "Actually, although this jade pillow is precious, it would be a waste for young Master Mei to use it. It's better to leave it for someone who needs it more in the future. System, great host, take it easy. It won't be easy to coax you back. Mei Shangji hesitated and said, I don't need it. I'm buying it for my father. He was afraid that Tang Guo would not believe him. My father's body isn't good. He often hurts here and there. He can't sleep at night, so he likes to brush his broadsword in the yard. If this jade pillow really has that kind of miraculous effect, it's just right for my father. I didn't expect young Master Mei to be such a filial son. If that's the case, I can sell you the jade pillow. I believe that young Master Mei won't owe anyone money. I'll sell this jade pillow to you for 1,000,000 taels. It's not too expensive. Can you accept this price? Yes, Mei Shangji was overjoyed. Thank you, Shitzi Foreign. I'll give you 300,000 taels first. I actually owe you 10,000 taels. I'll write an IOU for you, and we'll definitely pay it back as soon as possible, Tang Guo said with a smile. It's rare for young Master Mei to be so filial. Don't worry, you can pay it back slowly. You'll be able to pay it back in a lifetime. System, if you can't pay me back, I'll use someone else to offset it. Mei Shangji hurriedly said. It shouldn't take more than 2 years. I'll think of a way to earn money. I'll be able to pay it back quickly. It won't take a lifetime. System, silly boy, you'll regret it in the future if you return it happily. You'd better pay me back 1 or 2 taels a day. You won't be able to pay me back all your life. Mei Shangji hugged the already wrapped jade pillow and gave Tang Guo everything he had on him that could be used as money. He even took off the jade ornaments around his waist and placed them all on the table. The Peak. Chapter 32:11. If it wasn't for the fact that removing the crown on his head would cause his hair to become disheveled and cause a bad influence, he probably would have taken it off as well. When Mei Shangji left, other than the jade pillow that he carefully hugged in his hands, he didn't leave a single coin behind. After he personally sent the items back to the residence, he didn't go to the restaurant with Shangguan Yungu and Shangguan Qingchuan to eat. Shangji, what's the hurry? Shangguan Qingchuan didn't quite understand. Every time he went out of the palace, Mei Shangji would find a chance to take him out to play. This time, he had changed his temperament. He actually took the initiative not to go, which really surprised him. Mei Shangji returned to his previous lazy appearance. My father is celebrating his birthday. In any case, he's still my father. I'll obediently stay in the residence during this period of time and not go out to play. Otherwise, he'll beat me with rattan during the birthday celebration. Speaking of being beaten by his father, Mei Shangji really didn't blush at all. Anyway, everyone in the capital knew about it. Only his father dared to beat him. That's true. If he knew that you went out again and didn't do your job properly, the General King might really beat you up on his birthday. Even if he couldn't find the rattan, beating it with his fists was enough to make the entire birthday lively. Shangguan Qingchuan didn't force him and left with Shangguan Yungu. What they didn't know was that after Mei Shangji returned to the manor, he searched his room for all sorts of things. Anything that could be sold, he had the servants sell it off. In the end, the silver that was gathered was not much different from his previous estimate. It was only a little bit more. He kept the change with him and sent the rest to Tang Guo. Miss, this was sent over by young Master Mei. Lychee didn't quite understand what was inside the box. After all, this box was still so big. Tang Guo only said, Young Master Mei bought a jade pillow from me. This is the banknote. So it's like this. Let's go. We've already wasted too much time outside. Let's go back. And in the General King's residence, how could Mei Shangji's movements be hidden from the General King? Knowing that Mei Shangji had sold a lot of things, the General King raised his blade and rushed over. He pushed the door open with the handle of his saber and walked into the house. The first thing he saw was an empty room. Other than the necessary tables and chairs, there were no other furnishings. The things that Mei Shangji used to cherish seemed to be gone. The King of General was still not used to Mei Shangji's empty and plain house. Walking into the inner room, he saw Mei Shangji slumped on a chair with a long face, counting the pieces of silver in his pouch. He was so angry that he laughed. Since when did this brat become interested in even a small amount of silver. Little brat, what bad things have you done today? Why was the house emptied? Did you offend someone or break something? Did they ask you for compensation? Father. Mei Shangji raised his eyelids, appearing particularly dispirited. From today onwards, he would have to live in poverty. It was indeed hard to live without money. As his father, he would never give him extra money. The main thing was that he owed 700,000 taels of silver. He had to think of a way to pay back this money. For at least 2 years, he would have to live frugally. Did you really get into trouble? The General King saw the dispirited Mei Shangji. What stupid thing did you do again? How much silver did you pay? Peak. Chapter 32:12. I didn't cause any trouble, father. Can't you think positively? The problem is, have you ever had a good life since you were young? The General King sat down and suddenly saw a gift box on the table. What is this? The room was empty except for this gift box. The General King was very curious. At this time, what else could this kid not sell? Father, wait a minute. Mei Shangji quickly jumped up and wanted to stop the General King. However, the General King was very fast and had already opened the gift box. When he saw a beautiful jade pillow inside, his eyes lit up. He threw the knife in his hand to the ground and gently held the jade pillow with both hands to admire it carefully. Father, this is a good thing, the General King said without turning his head. After so many years, this is the best thing I have seen. This touch is simply indescribable. This quality, it is the best of the best. Father, this. All right, I won't fuss about the trouble you caused outside. I will bring this jade pillow back to admire. Anyway, we are father and son. Isn't it the same whether you keep it or I keep it? Father, actually, the birthday gift you prepared for me, have you prepared it? The General King suddenly asked and squinted his eyes. Why don't you use this as your birthday gift? I think it is very suitable. Mei Shangji opened his mouth. It was quite suitable. It was meant for him. Father, you caused trouble and sold all the things in the house. You don't have any money to spend, right? The General King was very happy. Go get 10,000 from the butler. Treat it as your expenses for half a year. Mei Shangji counted with his fingers. 10,000 for half a year. Not even 2,000 for a month. Even if he didn't eat or drink, it would be like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. His father wanted him to eat northwest wind. And this money he couldn't spend it. Father, this is the birthday gift I prepared for you. So that's how it is. How thoughtful of you. You've finally done something right. The General King left with the jade pillow. All right, I'll accept your kindness. If you don't cause too much trouble in the next 6 months, I can turn a blind eye and pretend that I don't know anything. What Mei Shangji wanted to say was, in fact, there was no need for him to pretend that he didn't know. He just needed to give him some money to solve his urgent needs. In the end, he shook his head. Forget it. His father was quite poor, and probably wouldn't be able to fork out much money. He'd better think of another way. Dear host, Mei Shangji is now so poor that he doesn't have anything valuable on him. I'll raise him when I'm free. The system snickered. Dear host, is this what you mean by breaking his wings and keeping him captive? Tongzi, what kind of weird stuff was inserted into your program? You're always thinking about such nonsense. Have you never killed poison before? The system felt a little wronged. It also wanted to kill the invader, but in its program, there was no such option. Maybe he really was infected with some strange virus. Tangua's life in the house of the Marquis wasn't bad, but the old madam was suffering day by day. In the 2 months after Tangua's wedding, the old madam sent her 3 concubines. No, it was going to be the 4th one soon. Tangua was sunbathing in the courtyard when she saw Chunhua leading a very beautiful woman over. Peak. Chapter 32:13. Greetings, Madam Crown Prince. Chunhua was already numb. Madam Dowager had chosen so many girls, but she was the only one who was not chosen. The girl who was brought over today was said to be the daughter of Madam Dowager's distant relative. Besides, she had the same surname as Madam Dowager. She was not just an ordinary concubine. Madam Dowager had said that Chun Xinyan should be promoted to a concubine. She was not an ordinary concubine who had no status at all. Get up. Is Madame Dowager sending a new sister over? Tangwa kept her eyes fixed on Madame Chen Xinyan. Chen Xinyan was indeed beautiful. She had a perfect cherry-like mouth, willowy eyebrows, and almond-shaped eyes. Her eyes were especially watery, as if they could speak. Her waist was also very soft. When she walked, she looked like a willow leaf, which was very beautiful. At the same time, there was an arrogance in her eyes that the other concubines could not compare to. Yes, even when standing in front of her, Chen Xinyan was still very arrogant. Chen Xinyan was arrogant because she had Madame Dowager's support. She was Madame Dowager's distant relative, and had the same surname as Madame Dowager. Naturally, she was closer to Madame Dowager than Madame Crown Prince. Secondly, she had heard that the Crown Prince abandoned Madame Crown Prince on the night of his wedding. He did not accompany Madame Crown Prince to greet her the next day. This behavior had made Madame Crown Prince a joke in the entire capital city. The bigger joke was that the Crown Prince had never entered Madame Crown Prince's room ever since. They had been married for 2 months, but she was still a virgin. It would be a joke if others knew about it. Due to Tangwa's identity, many people in the capital city had forgotten that not only did Do Changya not enter her room, but he also did not enter other rooms. However, even if someone noticed it, there would probably be someone who would excuse Do Changya by saying that the Crown Prince could not forget his first wife who had passed away, and thus could not accept other women. Such an affectionate Crown Prince would be praised by those scholars and beauties, and it would not affect him at all. Greetings, sister. Although Chen Xinyan was Tangwa's concubine, she had her own pride too. He bent his knees slightly, but his back was straight. He lowered his eyes slightly, but did not lower his head. This action would not appear too servile, nor would it make people think that she did not know etiquette. It could be said that it was just right. Get up. Thank you, big sister. Although Chen Xinyan was very arrogant, she did not come from a big family. She was just a pretty girl from a small family. In a place like the Marquis' estate, the most one could do was become a concubine. If she gave birth to a son in the future, the highest position she could have was to be promoted to a concubine. Her target was the Shitsi's side wife. As for the Shitsi's wife, she had never thought about it. It wasn't that he didn't want to think about it, but he didn't dare to. It was her identity that didn't allow her to think about it. Originally, with her status as the pretty daughter of a humble family, if she were to find someone of equal social status, she would definitely be a proper legal wife. However, she was self-conceited and virtuous. It should be said that she had grown up under the expectations of her parents. From the moment she was born, he had already planned to send her into the Marquis' estate to be the heir apparent's concubine. She also yearned for the affection of the heir of the Crown Prince. Even if she couldn't get Lu Junhua's favor, she hoped that she could get some of Do Changya's attention. He didn't need too much, just a little bit would do. She would be content with just a little bit. Peak. Chapter 32:14. Moreover, she felt that she was different from the others. The women in the Marquis' mansion were unable to attract the Shitsi because they did not have the ability. Now that she had entered the mansion, she would definitely attract the Shitsi's attention. She would definitely not let down the old madam's love. What's your name? Tangwa asked. The concubines standing at the side were led by Qiuyu, followed by Zhang Yuanxiang and Li Donger. When they heard Tangwa's question, they all felt that it was very familiar. My name is Chen Xinyan. Chen Xinyan still replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. The pride in her body was indeed very attractive. Tangwa nodded lightly and smiled. It's a good name. Chen Xinyan did not show it on her face, but she was actually very puzzled. Why was the Shitsi's wife smiling when someone like her entered the mansion? She did not hate her at all. They had already talked for a while. Why did she not knock her down a bit? She was already prepared to be put in a difficult position by the Shitsi's wife later, and how to deal with it. After all, before she came, she had already heard that the Shitsi's wife was a shrew, and was not easy to get along with. Things were different from what she thought. Chen Xinyan decided to wait and see. She did not dare to let her guard down. Shitsi's wife, the old madam, said that although Miss Chen came from a small family, She has a clean background and should be a concubine. Chen Hua almost could not control her facial expression. One Shizi's wife was not enough. Now there was another Chen Liang concubine. However, the old madam could not see her. She was clearly in front of the old madam every day. If this continued, she would not be able to stay in the mansion. She Chen Hua would not even have a status. She had served the old madam for so many years. Why did the old madam give her to the Shizi as a concubine? Even if she was just a small concubine with no possibility of being promoted in her life, she was still willing. As long as she was liked by the Shizi, her status was not that important. Alright, then you will be Chen Liang concubine from now on. Tang Gua spoke without hesitation. She then looked at Chen Hua. Chen Hua, you can go back. Go and tell the old madam that I will take good care of Chen Liang concubine. Chen Hua left unwillingly. Chen Xinyan was still a concubine. Why was the princess still smiling? She didn't seem to be affected at all. Lychee reward. Lychee nodded and took out 2 taels of silver from her pouch and stuffed it into Chen Liangqia's hands. Chen Liangqia touched the silver and was even more puzzled. Wasn't this a warning to her? Why did she reward her with money? Qiuyu was no longer surprised, but Zhang Yuanxiang and Li Dongge recalled that when they first came in, Tang Gua had also gone through the same process. Looking at how happy Tang Gua was, they even suspected that Tang Gua was very happy to see the backyard become lively. Qiuyu felt that she should do something to help the heir's wife, so she walked in front of Chen Xinyan and said with good intentions, "Big sister Chen, if you have anything you don't understand, just ask me. I will explain to you in detail the rules of the Marquis' estate." The main point was that no one should provoke the princess of the crown prince. The old madam and the heir apparent's wife had been competing with each other for 2 months, and she had not been able to gain an advantage for even a single day. It could be seen that the crown prince's wife was a truly powerful person. Chen Liangqia didn't seem to care. She had to persuade her. Vertex. Chapter 32:15. Before entering the manor, the mama of the Marquis' manor had already taught me the rules of the Marquis' manor. Therefore, there is no need for this little sister to worry. Although Chen Xinyan was polite, her short sentence revealed a lot of information. She was taught by the nanny before entering the manor, so she must be someone that the old madam valued. Qiuyu was tactful. Since Chen Xinyan had rejected her, she could not force her. Chen Liangqia was much older than her, an ordinary concubine. Qiuyu smiled and nodded, then retreated to the side. Lychee, arrange a place for Chen Liangqia to stay. Tang Gua looked around the courtyard and pointed at the house opposite, where Qiuyu and the others were staying. Let's go there. What does Chen Liangqia think? Chen Xinyan did not care about this. There were not many people now, so it did not matter where she stayed. I'll follow your arrangements. After making arrangements for Chen Liangqia, Tang Gua went to the jade store. When she entered the store, she saw a familiar person. It was a handsome young man with a lazy smile, waving a fan, and dressed extravagantly. When he saw Tang Gua walk in, he immediately changed his expression. He put away the naughty smile on his face and became slightly more serious. He also put away the fan that was waving wildly. His originally sloppy posture had also changed. Now he was standing upright and had a hint of a suave aura. If they did not know who he was, many girls would have been deceived by his appearance. But the girls in the capital who knew who he was would take a detour. The Lord of General was no longer the Lord of General of the past. He was no longer greedy for power and money. It could be said that the Lord of General's residence was very ordinary in the capital and had no prospects. Most importantly, Mei Shangji was an ignorant and incompetent good-for-nothing. Any girl who was slightly better would not choose him. Madam, you're here. I was just passing by, so I can return some money to you. Mei Shangji took out the money and handed it to Lychee. Then he took 3 steps back and cupped his hands with a smile. I'll return it to you next time. Young Master Mei, you don't have to rush. You can pay me back slowly. Tang Gua replied with a smile. There was really no rush. System, of course I'm in a hurry to see you. What else do you think it is? If he could return it once, he would be able to see it a few more times. However, this silly boy probably didn't know what he was thinking. He just wanted to get closer to the host. He didn't even realize how hilarious it was for him to pretend to be so serious when he saw his host. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to save it, and will spend it later, so it's better to return the money to you first. Ever since he bought the jade pillow, he hadn't bought anything new that he liked for a long time. Even if they occasionally had some extra money, they couldn't wait to round it up and send it to Tanghua. He thought that this was because he didn't want to owe anyone money, but he didn't know that his instinctive reaction was actually different from what he thought. Alright, actually, you don't have to come personally to return the money. You can just send someone over. System, you're teasing me again. You're going to hurt me later, Mei Shangji said. In any case, this young master has to go out and often wander around. Coming over to return the money is just a matter of convenience. There's no need to specially arrange for a servant to come over. I don't feel at ease handing it over to others, so it's better for me to hand it over to you personally. The worrying shopkeeper. Don't think that I don't know that you're mocking me. Peek. Chapter 32:16. Tanghua patrolled the shops, asked the shopkeeper about the situation, and left again. Basically, she would visit the shops once every 7 days. And at the same time, she would visit all the shops under her name. Mei Shangji had already figured out the pattern of her movements. So on the day that it was time, he would pretend to be passing by inadvertently, and then remember that he had to repay his debt. Moreover, he was interested in jade wares. Basically, he would come in the afternoon to look at the new jade wares in the shop, and Tanghua would also come. As a matter of fact, when Tanghua left, Mei Shangji suddenly felt that these exquisite jade wares were not that fun. Time passed quickly, and Tanghua maintained this pattern. Mei Shangji would always come out occasionally and return her money. In order to return the money, Mei Shangji and his group of rich playboys in the capital thought of many ways, and finally did not have to worry about money. Looking at the money coming in every day, he suddenly did not want to return the money that he owed Tanghua so quickly. Originally, he wanted to share it with Tanghua. He had recently earned a lot of money, and in half a year, he should be able to return the money that he owed her. Because he suddenly did not want to return the money immediately, when he saw Tanghua again, he suddenly swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. When he saw Tanghua, he did not say much and just greeted her. Madam Heir, you came at the right time. I can return you some more money. After that, Tanghua took the money, took out the account book, and crossed out a line for the other party. Both parties then pressed their handprints on the account book. In reality, Mei Shangji thought that with their characters, there was no problem whether or not they pressed their handprints. Why would the Madam Heir want to blackmail him? Even if she did, he did not feel particularly bad. However, he believed that the Madam Heir was not that kind of person. System. Dear host, these past few months, Mei Shangji has not bought anything that he likes. He has a bit of money, and hopes to return the money to you in the shop one day. This child is really cute. When did you become like an old father again? I'm just sighing. This brat clearly hasn't been enlightened, but he can't control his footsteps. He has to pay you back every 7 days. It was said that he and those hedonistic sons of rich parents had recently started writing books, and made a lot of money. However, he seemed to have learned his lesson, and did not intend to return too much at once. It seems that he is slowly coming to his senses. Congratulations. In the past few months, Do Changya basically did not ask about the matters of the Marquis's mansion. Old Madame Sheng had told him numerous times to visit the backyard whenever he had nothing to do. Do Changya would agree to it, but he would return to his study after turning around, refusing to visit the backyard at all. As for how many concubines he had now, he probably didn't even know himself. Old Madame felt that this could not go on, and hence, she decided to create opportunities for Chen Xinyan to appear in front of Do Changya more often. However, Do Changya did not notice her at all. Chen Xinyan, who was originally full of confidence, was very disappointed. Madame Dowager urged her to take the initiative. Indeed, she wanted to get close to Do Changya. Hence, she sent some food to Do Changya's study room, intending to get close to him. "Young master, you must be hungry. I've brought you some food. Old Madame Sheng said that you like to eat these pastries the most." Chen Xinyan stood at the door of the study room. Since there were people guarding outside the door, she could only say these things at the door. The Peak. Chapter 32:17. I'm not hungry. Take it back. I don't like to eat pastries either. Don't you find them greasy at night? Dou Changye would never give any face to a woman who was not Lu Junhua. He could even abandon his wife on their wedding night, let alone a concubine. Chen Xinyan tried to persuade him again, but she ended up angering Dou Changye. He scolded her and told her to scram, stay in the house obediently, and not have any delusions. After all, Chen Xinyan still had some dignity. After being scolded like this, all of her dignity was gone. At that time, she put the food aside and ran away crying. Xiao Yu and the other two were not surprised to see Chen Xinyan running away while crying. The crown prince would never give them face. If it weren't for his wife, they would have been despised by old madam. Otherwise, they would have had a hard time. Old madam knew that Chen Xinyan had failed. She sighed and said, "What kind of woman does the crown prince like? Do you really want me to find a Lu Junhua for him?" "Old madam, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if I should." Old madam looked at the servant beside her and asked, "What is it?" "Old madam, perhaps we were wrong from the start. The crown prince likes wild girls like Lu Junhua. He obviously doesn't like proper ladies. Needless to say, of course I know that. However, I don't like Lu Junhua, who likes to steal the limelight and compete with other men for rankings. She's not suitable for us either. She's carefree and unruly." "Old madam, we're just looking for 2 concubines, not marrying the crown prince's wife. We already have the crown prince's wife now, but she's still useless. We don't have to hope that the crown prince will like these women. We just have to hope that he's willing to give birth to more children." "What do you mean? Why don't we find a woman who has been taught a lesson? I know of such places. Those playthings are mostly bought and sold by people. The crown prince doesn't want to give birth to more children. Why don't we find some fresh playthings? Who knows, the crown prince might like them." Old madam asked hesitantly, "What if they're not clean?" "Old madam, you're thinking too much. These women may have been manipulated, but they're definitely clean. They're just good at serving men. No matter what, we'll leave a descendant first. We can talk about the rest later. Once the child is born, the crown prince's wife, I'm sure she'll be happy." Since that was the case, old madam agreed. The old madam's thoughts were actually very simple. No matter what, they had to leave behind a bloodline for the marquis's residence. If Dou Changye were to get intimate with another woman, there would definitely be a second one, and a third one. By then, Lu Junhua would gradually disappear from Dou Changye's heart. That would be the best outcome. Old madams especially SSS have STS. This was especially true for these 2 women. Every frown and smile tugged at one's heartstrings. The old madam didn't leave the 2 women with her, but kept them by her side for the time being. Ever since Chen Xinyan suffered a blow previously, she had been unable to recover from the setback. She could not sleep well or eat well, and had lost a lot of weight. The sun was warm on this day. Peak. Chapter 32:18. All the women in the back residence were sunbathing. Tang Gua and Xiao Yu were sitting at a square table. They seemed to be playing something. "Madam, you're so good. You win every time." Xiao Yu couldn't help but scream. "We're going to lose all the money that you gave us. Don't worry. I'll reward you again if you lose. Madam, you're so nice." "System, why isn't that guy enlightened yet? He probably doesn't know that Great Host already has 3 loyal and devoted concubines by his side. After a while, he thinks that concubine Chen Xinyan might also be tricked over." Chen Xinyan sat at one side and watched as Tang Gua, Xiao Yu, and the others played the leaf game. Actually, the leaf game was the predecessor of mahjong. It was just that the shape was different. The leaf game was like a piece of paper. There were some differences in the way it was played. Chen Xinyan didn't understand. The crown prince clearly didn't like the women in the back courtyard. He even ignored the crown prince's wife. He even left on their wedding night, without giving her any face. Why did the crown prince's wife not seem to care at all? Why was she so happy every day? There were also concubines like Qiuyu, Li Dong-er, and Zhang Yuanxiang, who were from poor families and were sold to be concubines. Didn't they want to be liked by the crown prince and live happily? Even if the crown prince didn't come over, why did they still look so happy? System. He really felt that they were missing one person. Tangua had already noticed that Chen Xinyan had unknowingly moved to their side and was secretly watching them play the leaf game. As they gradually got into the mood, the gloominess on their faces lessened. When it was about time, Tangua stood up. Chen Liangxia, take my place for a while. Today is the day that I'm going to inspect the shops. If I don't keep an eye on them, I'll be worried. Before Chen Liangxia could react, she was pressed back into her seat. She didn't even have a chance to refute. Tangua had already brought Liqi out to check on the shops. Naturally, she met Mei Shangji, who was here to return the money. It was already evening when she returned to the Marquis's residence. Before she reached the courtyard, she heard the noise inside. It turned out that they hadn't left yet. When they saw Tangua coming in, they were about to stand up and bow to her. But she stopped them. Let's continue playing. There's no need to pay attention to the rules now. Chen Xinyan's arrogance had long dissipated. Even the way she looked at Tangua was different. At the same time, the dejected look on his face had also disappeared. System. That's enough. This table of mahjong buddies is really full. Tangua counted the days. There was not much time left before Lu Junhua appeared. His actions in the Marquis's residence did not change much. Even the people in the capital didn't mock her anymore. After all, her shops were making a lot of money every day. She didn't know when, but they had become places where the nobles frequented. The Shitsi's wife seemed to be very happy counting the silver taels. She mocked her for being embarrassed and being ignored by the Shitsi. She should first see if she had a shop with as much revenue as the Shitsi's wife. Chen Xinyan got closer to Qiuyu and the others. After playing together for a few days, they slowly opened their hearts to each other. If there's anyone in the Marquis's residence who treats us well and doesn't care about anyone else, it's the Shitsi's wife. Don't you think so, big sister Chen? Qiuyu asked. Chen Xinyan nodded seriously without any hesitation. Peak. Chapter 32:19. Sister is good to us. Chen Xinyan said. From the beginning till now, Tangua had never made things difficult for her. She even allowed her to integrate into this small circle and let bygones be bygones. Sister Chen, we can't count on the crown prince. Li Donger said softly and looked around. Look at the crown prince. Who has he liked all these years? It's true that he loves Lu Junhua deeply, but that's only for Lu Junhua. Zhang Yuanxiang added. That's right, Sister Chen. We were all anxious when we saw how you wanted the crown prince to like you. But Madam said that people like you won't turn back until you hit the wall. You'll only know what pain is when you hit your head. Only then will you understand that what you're counting on is just wishful thinking. Instead of counting on the crown prince to dote on you, why don't you please Madam and let her give you more money? Besides, Zhang Yuanxiang's voice became even softer. Besides, playing with Madam is much more enjoyable than serving those men. Madam doesn't torture us. She even gives us 3 sumptuous meals every day. Do you think that if the crown prince really likes us a little, our lives might not be so good? Chen Xinyan thought about it carefully and realized that it was true. If Shitsi really accepted other women, then they wouldn't sit here and play with each other peacefully. Instead, they would ridicule each other and fight for a man. Their lives would not be as relaxed as they were now. Their food and clothes would not be as good as they were now. Since the crown prince doesn't like us, we shouldn't curry favor with him, lest he hates us. It's better to follow Madam. She's much easier to get along with. If there's a man like Madam, he's worthy of my sincerity. I don't care about the rest. Qiuyu couldn't help but tease her. If Madam isn't a man, you won't give her your sincerity. Go, go, go. Who said that? I'm just making a metaphor. All my heart belongs to Madam. I'll be wherever Madam is in the future. Chen Xinyan couldn't help but laugh when she saw the sisters arguing. Yes, the past few days were the happiest days for her. Compared to trying to please the crown prince, It was much more enjoyable to get along with these sisters, and Madame Chen Xinyan had completely given up on Do Changya. Early in the morning, Tang Guo led a group of concubines to pay respects to the old madam. Halfway through, she was informed that Madame Dowager had rushed to Do Changya's courtyard. Tang Guo's intuition told her that something must have happened, so she followed him with a group of concubines. Just as she walked to the door of the courtyard, she heard the old madam's voice full of vigor. "You dare! If you dare to beat her to death, then you might as well beat this old woman to death as well." The old madam's voice was very fierce, as if she was willing to risk her life to protect someone. Tang Guo went in to take a look, only to see that Madame Dowager was shielding a woman who was still crying behind her and waiting for Do Changya fiercely. Similarly, Do Changya's clothes were disheveled, and he was only wearing an undergarment. From the other party's gloomy expression, something big must have happened. Those who knew a little would think that something must have happened between the disheveled woman and Do Changya. "Old madam, you've gone too far this time. I've always respected you as my family." Peak. Chapter 32:20. I didn't expect you to send such a woman to stay by my side. She even dared to drug me. Tang Guo blinked her eyes. She didn't expect Madame Dowager to come up with another trick after failing to torment her and sending concubines to her. Previously, she had already felt that the two seductive women were not simple. It turned out that this was their true purpose. This Madame Dowager was indeed a ruthless person. However, these two women were also impressive to be able to plot against Do Changya. She also knew that in this world, there were places that specialized in grooming special women. These women were usually sent to the big houses to be concubines of the rich and powerful. To put it bluntly, they were just playthings. This was a phenomenon of an era. Perhaps one day, this world would also usher in a huge change. Tang Guo observed the woman who was hiding behind Madame Dowager and was shivering in fear. Although she was afraid, she also seemed to have succeeded. She understood that she had probably succeeded in scheming against Do Changya. This was going to be fun. Do Changya was having an affair with another woman. This woman was probably jealous. If she got pregnant, it would be even more interesting. Madame Dowager also knew that this woman had probably succeeded. That was why she protected her at all costs. According to Do Changya's character, he would most likely beat this woman to death, even if something had happened that was not supposed to happen. Madame Dowager obviously understood this. That was why she came here in time to stop it. She might have even arranged for someone to see this from the start. "Madame Dowager, my sister has fainted after being hit by the Crown Prince. Madame Dowager, please save my sister." The woman who was hiding behind finally spoke. Tang Guo couldn't help but look into the house. So there was another one inside. "Chunhua, go in and see if she's still alive." Tang Guo noticed that the woman who was kneeling behind pursed her lips tightly and clenched her fists when Madame Dowager said that if she was still alive, she wouldn't be able to do so. She shook her head gently. Even if she was taught to be a woman who only knew how to use her looks to survive, she was still a human. She wasn't a dead object. She could feel pain, cry, be sad, and think. "Madame Dowager, she's still alive. She's just fainted." The old madam's expression was indifferent. "Then hurry up and bring him back. Get the doctor to treat him." At the same time, the old madam pulled up the woman on the ground. "Get up and come back with me. I ordered you to serve the heir. Since your highness still doesn't like it, then come back with me. Changya, you can't always look at the past. You have to think about the entire Marquise estate. You don't like the virtuous ones, you don't like the gentle ones, and you don't like the beautiful ones. Are you trying to make our Do family extinct?" "Old madam, I've already made it clear to you that I'll only like Junhua in my life. I won't treat anyone else well, whether it's the concubines in the inner courtyard or the Shitsi's wife you've chosen for me. I don't like any of them. You can bring people back, but I can also keep people out." Do Changya glanced at Tang Guo and said, "I initially thought that you would give up after marrying the princess of the Crown Prince. I didn't expect you to be so insistent. Do you have to force women into my house before you're satisfied?" "Old madam, I'm planning to go out to calm myself down. You don't have to send someone to look for me. Do Changye knew that he couldn't kill the two women who had the audacity to enter his house and do things that they shouldn't have done. Peak. Chapter 32-21. Although he was furious, he could not do anything to Madame Dowager. Out of sight, out of mind, he could only leave immediately. Fortunately, Junhua was no longer around. If she was still around, she would be heartbroken to know about this. Earlier, he should have reacted faster and killed those two who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Since he could not kill them, he could only leave the mansion temporarily and go out to relax. Madame Dowager did not force him and glanced at Tangua coldly. Tangua nodded at old Madame. She didn't seem to care at all, which made old Madame very angry. However, she wanted to tell Tangua something, so she took 2 steps towards her and said, Tang, if Zhu'er and Zhen-er can get pregnant this time, the child will still be raised under your name. It would be best if they could have a child. She could not count on Do Changye anymore. No, Madame Dowager thought that Tangua would definitely agree, but she did not expect her to turn her down directly. Tang, you're going against me again. If the child is raised under your name, won't you be the one who benefits in the end? Once the child is born, he will have to call you mother and take care of you when you're old. Isn't that good? Madame Dowager was tired and did not want to continue fighting with Tang. If she were to have a child this time, she would have to rely on Tang to raise the child in the future. It was basically impossible for Do Changye to divorce Tang and marry another girl from a prestigious family. It was better to make use of the waste. Tang did not have a child under her name, so she might be able to raise the child well, regardless of whether the child was born from her womb or not. As long as the child was raised under her name, he would be the legitimate son and wouldn't have a low status. However, Tangua turned her down and Madame Dowager's face turned sullen. It's not up to you. Madame Dowager, if you insist, I can only ask for a divorce. According to my relationship with the Crown Prince, it's reasonable for me to sue His Majesty, isn't it? As expected, Madame Dowager could not control Tangua again. She was in a bad mood and turned around to leave. I think it's better to raise the child. Instead of raising the child under my name, why don't you promote the child's mother? The main room has been taken by me, so there might not be any left. The old madam is dying, and you also know that there's nothing left? Moreover, the status of these two women was not high enough to be the main wife. They were not presentable. She can be a concubine and be taught well. That's about right. Didn't old madam have nannies from the palace? Isn't it easy to educate two people? Old madam, let's make things clear first. I don't object to you taking 100 concubines, as long as the Marquis's estate can afford it. But if you want to put children in the house of a big liar like me, that's impossible. The old madam's eyes widened. This bastard, how could he say such things? Really, oh God, she was so angry. Xiao Yu and the others tried to hold back their laughter. Only the heir apparent's wife dared to boast so shamelessly. She still didn't know what to do with her, right? Chen Xinyun's eyes were filled with shock. This was the first time she had seen such a bold woman. If a woman was still a virgin after getting married, she would definitely feel very ashamed. After all, she was not liked by her husband and was disliked by others. It was a shameful thing to say out loud. However, Tangua said it openly and fearlessly. Chen Xinyun, who was also a woman, did not feel ashamed when she heard it. The top. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.